Back to the Culture Call on Praise 93.3 with L. Spencer Smith. Our desire is to reach and empower the community by discussing a cross-section of relevant topics from various perspectives that are essential to its growth and interpersonal connections. Be sure to save our call-in number, 205-752-4800. Be sure to install the free Praise 93.3 app so you can send L. Spencer Smith a message or topic idea. Search for WTSK in your app store.
This is the world premiere. Great morning, precious people. You know what time it is. That's right. Welcome to the Culture Call, the number one talk show. That's right. With yours truly, L. Spencer Smith, right here on Praise 93.3. Yes, it is indeed the place where Tuscaloosa meets the world. And for the next 2 hours from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., we're going to be talking a little bit about everything. That's right. From society to sports, education to economics, from religion to relationships. And as always, we are here to create a safe space to have empowering, provocative, and yes, sometimes controversial conversations. And guess what? You can call in and chat it up with us as we learn together right here on the Culture Call. First of all, you know how we do it. I want to send a shout out to all of my new listeners on this morning. That's right. This is your first time listening to the Culture Call. Welcome, one and all, to the CC family. We have a time every morning from 10 to 12. That's right. Leading up into lunch with the best in conversation, in talk, and all of those discussions that we need to have for our community, that we won't be late, last, or lost. And so we are grateful to have you here wherever you are and whatever you are doing. If you're at your cubicle, if you're traveling through the city, maybe you're sitting by the pool and you got your ear pods in, and something just told you to turn to 93.3 WTSK. Yes, you right here. We want you to know that we welcome you right here on the Culture Call. Number 2, to all of my consistent, faithful listeners, thank you all so much. You allow me to follow Brother Jay every morning, and you listen always, and you see me in the street, in the grocery store, at church. You shake my hand and let me know that I'm doing a great job. Listen, I could not do it without you, so I am so glad and grateful that you allow me some ear space time. You give me some 2-hour time. That's right, to talk to you a little bit. Yeah, you talk to me as well, so I appreciate you. And then finally, last but certainly not least, to the inimitable, anointed, phenomenal Brother Jay. I tell you, that man is on fire from 5 a.m. To 10 a.m. and he passes me this hot baton and he says, go ahead and run on and see what the end is going to be. I'm telling you, we have revival in here, and I do my very best to live up to that standard. We give a big shout out to Brother Jay every day. Listen, I want you to do me a favor, just in case if you have not, especially if you are a new listener, go to the App Store on your smart device, your Apple or your Android device, and search out Praise 93.3. That's right. Search out that app, Praise 93.3. Download that. That's right. A free 99 app. Download it on your phone, and there you can hear and listen to all of the tremendous program that we have on Praise. And not only that, you can hear the Culture Call. You can hear Brother Jay in the morning. You can hear Brother Chris in the evening. That's right. We try to do our very best to make sure that you have the best in gospel experience and some empowering news and discussion. We want to make sure that we give you a full plate of information and inspiration throughout your day. So do that. So wherever you are in the world, you can hear us. If you're in Topeka, Kansas, if you are in Dallas, Texas, maybe you are in Phoenix, Arizona, or right here in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, Mobile, Montgomery, Birmingham. That's right, Huntsville. Whether you're in Gordo, Reform, Utah, Aliceville, Boulder G, does not matter where you are. You can hear us always right here on Praise 93.3 and WTSK if you have that app. So make sure that you have that, okay? Do me a favor. That's right. Do me a favor and send me your public service announcements and events to culturecall.praise@gmail.com. I know we got a lot of things going on, vacation, Bible school, anniversaries, concerts, all that happening in our community. Send that to me at culturecall.praise@gmail.com and give me an opportunity to let Lottie Dottie and everybody know what's happening in your neck of the woods and your organization. Yeah, whether it's your church or your fraternity, your sorority, whether you're an artist getting ready to have a concert or do a recording, or a pastor getting ready to plant a church or run a revival. We want to let everybody know. You know why? Because it is our privilege to let people's faces be in the place. That's right. We want to make sure folks show up for your event, because right here at Praise 93.3, we do it better when we do it together. And as always, you can write down the golden number 205-752 4800. That's 205-752-4800. And you can give me a call and be a part of the show, and definitely follow us on our Facebook page, The Culture Call. Just press the like button and you can see all of the amazing things that we're doing on the daily. That's right. And you can message us and send us announcements there. And then you can also listen on the app. Listen, we've got a plethora of ways that you can be a part of the Culture Call and Praise 93.3. We want to make sure that you are well able to hear us and be a part of what we are doing. Listen, sit back and relax. Grab you some coffee. You know how we do it. Maxwell House of Starbucks, right? Maybe coffee is not your thing and you love tea. Well, go and get you some herbal tea, chamomile if you're trying to calm down, green tea if you need a little caffeine kick. Yeah, those little green teas do not play, right? Go ahead and get that. Or definitely, and as always, you can get you some alkaline or some spring water and detox that body. Get down to the cellular level, wake those cells up and say, hey, let's get ready to have a beautiful day and let's get into the culture. Listen, we are super excited for what is happening this month. This month, as we have researched it, is a couple of things are going on this month. Family month. It's a family month, and it's also men's month. It's a whole lot of things going on. And so we hope to cover all of that on this month as we talk to you this morning. Listen, I want to really broach a particular subject that's been on my heart. And coming off of May, which was Mental Health Awareness Month, I definitely want to kick into this subject today, which we're talking about men. That's what we're talking about. MEN. That's right. That's who we're talking about this morning. Men. And I want to talk about the need, the seed, and the lead. Men. The need, the seed, and the lead. Yeah. We're going to talk about that because I think it's very important that as we move in culture and society, that we bring some kind of awareness, a great awareness to, yes, the needs of men, the seed of men, and the necessity for the lead of men. And I'm going to balance it out. If you know me, I'm going to deal with some hard subjects that's going to make us better. It's going to be a little tight. Yep. Y'all know how I do it. So I need you to lean in this morning as we talk about men, the need, the seed, or the lead and the seed. All right. So let's do this. Here is the whole, the thing that I want to capture. And that is the necessity of us understanding men. In culture and in society, men are so definitely understood. And please understand me. I understand systems of patriarchy. I understand systems of misogyny. I understand the overly male dominant organizations in society that it is crafted for men to make it, especially if you're cisgender white men, heterosexual men. I understand all of those things that are in our plane of observation to be understood. And that is definitely not to cast aspersions upon the greatness of women, but I think in our discussions about the worth and the agency and purpose of women in society and freeing them to a place of liberty or freedom, their liberty of their whole humanhood as women, I think sometimes we can often swing the pendulum too far, and we lose the balance that we need to have when we have a conversation. Because at one point we talk so much about women, and need be, and please don't think that I'm discrediting that women need to be situated, women need to be pronounced, women need to be announced and properly set in places of our society and our families and our communities, etc. But in that, sometimes we lose a balance. And when we lose that balance and we don't understand the importance of men as well, we'll make it seem like, and I get it, oppressive society culture, and can create a language and a vocabulary that seems like that the only way that we can venerate and show the value and worth of women is to sometimes castigate and downgrade men. And I don't think that that's a healthy paradigm. I don't think that that is a healthy way and approach to look at how we have this real human conversation on the value of men and women, right? That we create particular distantiation and distances and disconnects in the way that we view in our perspectives and our perception and all of our experiences. And we make those things, when we speak about them and when we talk about them a lot of times, we make those things as if they are the predominant measure of how it goes. In other words, my perspective becomes law. It becomes doctrine. My perception is the reality that not only that I live, but I impute it to such that others must live my reality too. And oftentimes that is patently incorrect, right? Just because you have experienced things in a certain way does not mean that your perspective is the truth. It might be your truth, your experience, but that may not be the way the thing has been designed and organized and purposed to go. So I think that is very important. That is very, very important. Now, having said all of that, I have to, as a preacher, as a pastor, I've got to go to what God says. I've got to go to the book. I've got to go to the scriptures and really detail some things that the whole idea of the text in Genesis, when God says, let us make man in our own image and our own likeness. First of all, the whole idea of let us make man was not make male man, right? It was the spirit of man, the consciousness of man, the idea of man, the spirit of man, right? And so right there, when you really study that in the Hebrew, it does not mean male or female. It is the spirit of man, the spirit of man that dwells in both male man and female man, right? Man and woman, right? And so when God says, let us make man in our own image and our own likeness and let them have dominion, it has always been God's idea that there be a comprehensive complement, right, between a female man and male man, right? That's very important to understand. Let them, that's the language of the text. Let them have dominion, right? Let them be fruitful. Let them multiply. Let them replenish. Let them subdue, and let them have dominion. It was always a them science in the mind of the divine, right? It was never male man first as a political and or a leadership position. That was not how it started off. No, it was the blessing on the spirit of man that is possessed by both men and women. So God is not did not write the book in male dominance. God did not write the book in patriarchy, right? That happened after the fall. That happened after the understanding of man being tricked out of the image of God, or the consciousness of the image of God, by the serpent. That's Genesis chapter number 3. But when we see Genesis chapter 1 and 2, there is a complement. There is a complement. As a matter of fact, that when God created woman, it was the finishing product of humanity. It was the finishing idea of let us make man in our own image and let them. It was the finishing idea of them. because there was not a them in and just that one man, right? And the scripture says that God saw, and he said it was not good for man to be alone, right? Now let's get it right. Let's get it straight. It's not good for the male man to be alone. And so what did he do? He put male man to sleep, and he pulled out of male man the finishing context of let them, and that was female man. And then he opened up the man's eyes and says, and the man says, this is woman. She is bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. In other words, we are the same individual. Let me say that again. We are the same individual, right? And of course, out of that, we get the context that some get the context of marriage and first marriage, and first, all of those things. And I get that. I understand how, in our sanctified imaginations, we come up with that and extrapolate that whole idea, the definition of marriage, right? But in that context, there was no dominance over man over woman. There was no dominance. As a matter of fact, the text tells us that the woman exists to be the helpmeet suitable for the man, right? That the man needed help on his level, help on his level of agency, help on his level of physicality, help on the level of his vision, right? That one man is not a lesser man, but she is equal man in terms of spirit. She serves a different purpose, right? And so I said all of that, and once we get to Genesis 3, from the fall and all that, the Nephilim, when we get to that idea, then there becomes some distantiation, and then Jewish historians begin to tell us that woman began to take some level of ownership, because male man Adam, right, he is in depression in a cave. When you read Josephus and all of the writings of the antiquities, you begin to understand that Adam is in this whole idea of depression, because he's trying to figure out, how did I lose my position? Well, it's not how, and not trying to figure out how, but how could I be tricked? Because it was the great deception, right? Because if you eat this fruit, God knows that when you eat it, you're going to become like him. Here's the problem. Well, if that was the case, how come the serpent didn't eat the fruit to become like God? How come Satan didn't eat the fruit to become like God? It was all a big trick. And so the historians say Adam spends the rest of his life lamenting how he was tricked out of the place of paradise, out of the place of pleasure. He and his wife kicked out of that place, or he and the woman kicked out of that place, right? Because he was the ownership of instruction. He was the ownership of information, and the woman was the owner of intimacy. She was the owner of intuition, right? So we had this whole conversation. And since that moment, men, or the system, or our theology, or our biblical interpretations, our hermeneutics, have been stuck where in male dominance, in patriarchy. Even when the text begins to write out of Genesis, when we get to, especially when we get to Abram and all these particular things, we see a definite patriarchy there, right? But that is because that the Hebrew writer, or the context of scripture, wants to deal with the seed, because it is the history of the people of God, not the total history. There was more going on in history around the entire known world that is not written in the sacred text. Remember that the Bible is, especially in the Old Testament, is a historical purview of, yes, the peoples of the world in some instance, but more particularly, it is the biographical and history of the people of God, the Israel people, Hebrews. That's the Jewish people. So once we get to the Torah, the Pentateuch, and all those ideas, we see this whole idea of patriarchy. Right? And there are measured accounts of abuses of women, but then also we see the women balancing for leadership, right? But there was always been from Adam's a missingness, a need in men, a silent ache in male man, a silent ache in every male man. And that ache and that need has been always the missingness of the image of God in him. That how did I lose this? How did I lose a sense of self? How do I recapture who I really am? There has been always a sense of divinity lost in men. And when we look at it, we zoom all the way to now, because there's a whole lot of history that goes with that a lot of the trouble that is in and has always been historically in the earth has been because men have this aching, silent need to want to know who they belong to as it relates to a spiritual context, right? That why am I like I am? And that spiritual context even then begins to graduate down into or disseminate down into a soulish and a physical understanding. There is a missingness of identity in men. And most men, because of how society and culture has shaped itself over time, cannot even voice or that articulate that particular need in them. That men come with a certain assumed arrogance and ego and pride and confidence and courage and bravery, right? But there is something also on the inside of them that's longing to know who they are, who is responsible for my being, who is responsible. And I'm moving beyond the physicality of that, right? I saw a particular interview of this young man on a successful young man in acting and authoring and you know, a comedian as well, on Instagram. And I sat there and I looked at it and I saw this man who has children himself go back to his little boy status because his father was not there. His sense of identity. He was just crying out on the screen. He's like, you all don't understand how it feels to live every day of your life with this silent ache that I don't really know who my dad is, or I know who my dad is, but he doesn't want anything to do with my life. He doesn't want to take ownership not of my failure, because I'm not a failure. He's not even there for my successes. He's not there. He wasn't the dad that was there when I was doing this. And I mean, he went all the way back to his childhood. And I'm looking at this grown man crying. I'm talking about sobbing because he has an aching need to know who is responsible for my life, and the one that I know who is responsible, they don't want to have anything to do with me, that they won't even answer the questions of their missingness, of their previous absences. He's like, I'm a grown man in my 30s, close to my 40s, but now I want to, and I have a space still open for that need for identity, that need for that man who put me in the earth to tell me who I am and to tell me he's proud of me, and he has avoided me. And you got to understand that. He's trying to do for his children the things that were never done for him, and yet he is living as a grown man now, still searching for that validation, still searching for the feeling of that empty void space that was created by his father. And I bet that if we did a deep dive study into that man's life, that his father had the same level of missingness, right? And we go back down generations, that we will see that the absentee of fatherhood in men, the absentee and that ache in men, that absenteeism rather, it causes an ache in men that they never are able to articulate, never able to be able to not just articulate, but to validate. And they use so many vices and so many things to try to fill that void of the lack of identity. And that stems from that whole idea of Adam, right? That missingness. How did I miss my father? How did I lose the image? How did I get out of this garden? How can I lead my family? All of these different kinds of things. And then when you see, going back to Genesis, when you see Adam And the Bible says after Cain killed Abel, which was a symbol of missingness, because I'm trying to please God, but I can't please God because I don't have a natural father. And so, and that's whole idea of Abel created an anger, a murderous anger that he killed his brother, right? Because there's a void there in Cain, right? And that void there is because there is some distantiation that was created that we never see Adam interacting with his sons. And when God simply says, hey, if you do well, you'll be accepted. And it's that whole idea that Cain could never wrap himself around his own personal identity, that it was easier for him to be envious of his brother's relationship with God the Father, that Cain says, I'm going to kill my brother because there's a missingness of pleasure. I'm not bringing the Father pleasure. So the easiest thing to do is to kill my brother. And if you just walk that out through history, I'm telling you, I only have 2 hours, but I wish I had more time, Culture Call, to really walk us down the historical context of that event. And of course, we assign labels to Cain, and we assign labels to Abel, and I get all of that from a theological position. But if we ever stand back and understand the Cain identity, if we or the Cain lack of identity, understand that their father never gave them place in his life, or Adam was never active in their life. And so it created an envy. Why? Because God now accepts Abel and what Abel does, but does not accept Cain. But watch on the face. He said, Cain, I want to accept you, but I need you to give me what I'm asking you for. And Cain says, no, well, I'm not doing necessarily anything different than what Abel's doing, but that lack of acceptance. I get it. We can preach Cain all day. But I want to give a different perspective of how it relates to this need for men to be accepted, this need for men to have identity from their father, that need for acceptance, that need for where do I fit in life as a man? Watch this, I love this. Whose son am I? That we have a lot of fathers and male men in the earth who are attempting to be fathers, but have never answered the question, whose son am I? Yeah. Whose son am I? Who's accepting me as their son? Yeah. And that creates a silent ache in a lot of men that have not had the presence of fathers, that have not had the presence of strong men to give them identity. One of the most powerful things in the scriptures happened when Jesus was baptized in the Jordan. That was an amazing scenario there, because what God did for Jesus was gave him fatherhood, gave him a crucial state of what his identity was. This is my beloved son in whom I'm well pleased. Zoom back to Genesis. That's something that Cain never heard, that he needed. And there are men in this country, in this world, in our city, in our communities that are acting out, that are violent, that are missing because they've never had what Jesus was given. And that is the validation of who they belong to. That silent ache that has never been quenched inside of them, right? I love my daughter immensely, but it is my sons who carry my face. They carry my DNA to the future, and which was important. That's why it's important for me that when they were growing up, that they had a sense of identity, that I am your father, that when they look in the mirror or when they make a phone call, they know who my name on their birth certificate. They've got pictures of me. They got my voice in their mind and in their heart and in their spirit, giving them identity. You will be surprised how many men have the need to know who they are. They want to know whose son am I? Who made me this male man? Whose wisdom can I tap into? And while we appreciate surrogacy, of other fathers. We appreciate stepfathers, and we appreciate all of those who rally around our mothers and help us navigate. There is nothing like the person that birthed you in this world, whose seed you are, to say, this is my beloved son in whom I'm well pleased. You have no clue. And so we're looking at men and we're talking about them and saying all these things about them, but we never address the need that men have to know who sponsors me, because whoever sponsors me is responsible for me. Whoever put me in this earth is responsible for me. And I think as we have this conversation about men today, we've definitely got to talk about the need, the seed, and the lead of men. Hopefully, if we address the need, we can also protect the seed and encourage men to take the lead how they're supposed to in our community, in our culture, and in all of our country. That's what we're talking about right here on the Culture Call with yours truly, Bishop L. Spencer Smith, right here on Praise 93.3 WTSK, your inspiration station. Keep it locked right here. There's more to come. Don't miss it.
This is the world premiere.
And we are back right here on the Culture Call with yours truly, L. Spencer Smith, and we are having an amazing day, an amazing conversation. Yeah. About men. That's right, men. M-E-N. That's right. The need, the lead, and the seed. The need. Let me get that right. The need, the seed, and the lead. That's right. I want to have a conversation about that. Yeah, because I think it's very important. And we talked about it in our first measure, how that we can sometimes get lost in the concerted, not minutia, but concerted momentum of trying to so much accentuate the value and worth of women that we sometimes push aside or denigrate the need to identify the same in men. Simply because men are hold positions of power in leadership, we think that men know who they are, and that's not necessarily true. That men are often rewarded because of the deals they make, not the determination about who they are in terms of valued identity. A lot of men in power have no clue of who they are, in terms of their agency, their clear, how I want to say that, the clear aspect of moving in a direction of a continuation of someone else's legacy. That, especially in our community, a lot of men are starting over. A lot of men are in generations of men, of course, but they are the first generation to establish some level of character and identity. And it's not supposed to be that way. It's not supposed to be that way, right? And for all of the flaws and the failures and the failings of our fathers of past, that men are more apt to own those failed men, simply to say, I'm connected to that man. That's my dad. I know he's an alcoholic. I know he had this thing. I know he was a gambler. I know he was a reveler. I know he was, adulterous. I know he has these issues, but that's my dad, right? The very identification that men can make of their fathers cannot be pushed aside. We've got to make sure that as it relates to who our men are in society, that they have the same ample help, assistance, of locating, their root system, in family, root system in biology, right? It is, my goodness, you have absolutely no idea of how it would feel or how it feels to not have someone say that you belong to me, that you are my seed, you are my DNA. And a lot of men have that. We very rarely see that with daughters or with women. They know who their moms are, but even in women, that there is a sense of missingness when the father is missing, when that man who is responsible for their being in terms of humanity is missing from the equation. And again, because we have assigned and labeled so many things, right? Because we have assigned and, erroneously assigned particular definitions based upon experience, deadbeat dads, and we, name them all kinds of things. I get all of that. I'm not dismissing that, but those labels are coming out of a deep sense of pain. They're coming out of a journey that did not have that level of sponsorship, that level of identification of this is my beloved son or my beloved daughter in whom I will please. You never know the ache that men take from being little boys, never seeing their father at the little league game, right? Never seeing their having their father in the home. Never having their father's hand and their father's hug, their discipline, smile, right? There is a sense of an abysmal void there that many men live with. My father was one of those men. My uncle, he and his brother were one of those men that did not know their father. That their father dropped them off one day to their mother's aunt, who we called our grandmother, but she was really our great aunt. And and he never saw them again. That they promised. The man called, my father's dad called and said, hey, bring him to my house. And my dad sat on, because he couldn't go into the house, my dad sat on that front step waiting for his father to come, waiting for his father to open the door, and his dad never did, right? And the pain that, my grandfather, who was really, my uncle, great uncle at the time, said, I would never subject Joseph to that kind of pain again. My God, he was named after his dad, but never saw his dad. But let me say this to you all. Let me tell you how deep that pain goes. That I saw my dad struggle so deeply with that. I saw the pain of of missing that man. I saw my dad was a genius musically, mathematically, but I saw that there were vices that held my dad's soul and spirit for years, right? As he was trying to fight the cycles of his own humanity, trying to fill that void of the missingness of his father. His mother had already passed. And that was a horrible story at that, right? But that whole idea, I saw him, well up into his 60s and his 70s, right? Fight that missingness, that lack of responsibility, that demon, that chasm in his own personal life, right? That as I got older, that there were a lot of things that I had to forgive my dad for, right? Because I began to understand he couldn't do for me, or he wasn't able to supply for me. He did the best he could with 3 boys, right? And he did the best he could, with the love and the understanding. He was uncomfortable when we showed him love. He was uncomfortable when he hugged us. But then as he got in his later years, he said, listen, I can't penalize my sons, right, for what I did not have. I can't do that. I can't penalize my wife for what I did not have, right? And it began to, and here's the deal. He would never allow any of us, my mom, my brothers, he would never allow anybody to speak ill of his father. Never. He would never say a bad word about the dad he never knew, right? Because to say something bad about his dad, in his mind, was to say something bad about himself, right? So he never directed his language against his father that treated his mother bad. That was part and parcel of the reason that his mom died, and his sense of missingness, right? And my dad was his namesake. My granddad, true granddad, his name is Joseph as well. And so to watch that sense of missingness, to watch that he never got this is my beloved son in whom I'm well pleased. And to see my dad struggle with his own demons on that missingness made me change my mind about men. Yeah. Made me change my mind about not just the kind of man that I wanted to be, but men in general. That there are men in our community and in our society that did not understand or did not have that validation, that sponsorship. And it created a tremendous need. And that need, watch this, did not stop them from producing seed. So now they have children. So there now you begin to widen the generational gap there, because these men who have these silent needs had seeds, and they treated their sons in a certain way, their daughters a certain way, right? And so we've got a generation of empty, broken men that are having babies, that have children that they don't know how to father. They don't know how to sponsor, right? They leave them like they were left, right? That if a man is not left as a child, he will not leave no matter how hard it is, his children. Or even if he is left as a child, he would go and break his back and work his entire life trying to make sure that his seed never experiences his need. And if we need to have intelligent conversations about that in our community, that we can talk about how bad men are. We can talk about X, Y, Z, and ABC. We can do all of those things. Yeah, we can say all of those things. But if we don't ever get down and tell ourselves and do a forensic study on the need of men, I don't see how a man could leave his child. I don't see how a man could blah, 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 right? And yeah. We can say all those things, but until you are that man who has been left, until you are that man that feels abandoned because he does not have sponsorship in the earth, right? Until you are that man that does not have a sense of identity, has not been spoken by his progenitor, right? And we've got, single moms trying to do the work of father and mother. I get all of that, but I want to tell you, from the real root of the situation, that she will never be able, as hard as she works, to ever replace. She was never designed to replace that male who brought that child in the world, right? Because from the beginning, the male is supposed to bless. The woman is supposed to carry the burden of bearing that child and nurturing that child, but it's that man that is the one that gives identity, gives prophetic modality and mentality to their children. Absolutely. It is the voice of Father. And this is important. This is important because that need now produces a seed that has amplified anger. Right? That when you talk to a lot of young men now, they're like, well, my dad was not there. And, you said, well, don't use that excuse. It's not an excuse. It's a reality. It's not an excuse. They're trying to tell you the source of that pain. And when you don't have the knowledgeability to understand the deep and the depth of that chasm, the depth of that pain, the depth of that emptiness, you will never understand Cain. This is why God didn't kill him. He says the whole idea was you're going to walk in the earth, watch this, as a fugitive. That there's going to be a mark on you that people are not going to touch you because there's something you need. There is something that Cain spirit allows men or affords to men to walk around as fugitives. Because it was never designed for men not to have that need met of fatherhood in their life, so that when they produce seed, remember, and we say it in church and we don't pay attention to it. Let me say it again. We say it in church, but don't pay attention to it. He is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's generational. Let me say that again. Yeah. We say it. He's the God. We say it in our prayers, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We say that all the time in our depth and our most solemn voices. right? We say that, but not understanding, and that's not a system of patriarchy. That's a system of connectivity. Yes. And each and every individual. And then Jacob turns into Israel. And then when we get into the latter chapters of Genesis, it is Jacob, who is Israel, that blessed his 12 sons. His sons, the tribes of Israel. Right? When we read properly, you got to read the text and allow the text to read you. But that's another subject. But when you don't have a man to bless you, when you don't have a man to say, hey, that's my boy. That was one of the greatest things growing up, that, yes, I was Net's baby. I was Lynette's baby. I would always travel and go with her. I would sing with her and all that. But it was a different feeling when somebody would tell me that's Smitty's boy. That's Smitty's boys right there. That's Smitty's son right there. That's my dad, Smitty. That's what they call him growing up, right? There's a different level of feeling as a son. Now, I was uberly proud to be Lynette's baby and to sing and to travel with my mom. But it was a different level of distinction when people looked at my face and they could see my dad, right? When he was sitting in the stands while I was marching, or when I was singing and he was sitting in the back of the church, or even now, I miss my dad's presence sitting in the back of the church when I would preach every Sunday. Every Sunday, my dad would sit in the back of the church and he would be standing up or waving and every Monday morning he would call me. He would call me and say, boy, you preached that message. You did listen, I learned more sitting under you in this last 45 minutes than I have learned my entire life. Yeah, that's what he would call me and say. And when he passed away, that was one of the greatest things, even unto this day. Yes, unto this day, I miss that about my dad. That, my mom would always say, boy, you preach. You ought not preach that hard. You ought not preach that. Listen, and I celebrated it because that's my girl. That is my girl. But when my dad would call me on Monday morning, and that would start my entire day. Let me say that again. That would start my entire day. Listen, whoever didn't say amen, whoever didn't support me, whoever didn't, have my back, when my dad would call me, it made a difference because I'm his seed. He saw himself in me. And whenever I needed wisdom, whenever I needed guidance, I can go to my dad and say, hey, Dad, here's the issue. What's going on? And he would sit back and he said, okay, man, let's you want some chicken? He would start cooking, or he would be in the backyard, planting, doing potting plants or working in his garden. And he'd sit down and say, well, let me see what I think about that. Right? That wisdom. He wasn't a talker like that. No. But his voice was tremendous validation in my life. And to reject that, to refuse that. And see, here it is. And if you have a seed by a man and that man wants to be a part of that child's life, don't you ever use that child as a pawn against him. No, you can't see your dad. Just because he don't want you, just because that relationship failed, that is that child's father. That's that child's sponsorship. He is responsible for that child. Don't take that away from him. Don't do. I counsel and I advise single moms all the time. Listen, whatever y'all got going on, fix it. Fix it. Don't matter. Y'all come to some level of congeniality, but don't take that father's voice and that father's presence away from that child because I can't stand to see him. Oh, no. Don't do that. Because the father, the man in that child's life is so important and so very valuable. Listen, Culture Call, we got a show today. I can feel y'all bubbling. I know it. Yes, but I need y'all to keep it right here on Praise 93.3 FM, your inspiration station. The Culture Call with yours truly, L. Spencer Smith. Keep it right here. Got much, much more to come. Don't miss it.
This is the world premiere.
And we are back. It's the top of the hour right here, 11 a.m. and some change right here on the Culture Call with yours truly, L. Spencer Smith. Praise 93.3 WTSK. Hey, we are having an amazing conversation an amazing day. Welcome all of you all who are joining me for the second hour. We are grateful to have you be a part of the CC family. And you have caught us in the midst of a tremendous conversation, controversial, provocative, absolutely. And I get it. We're talking about men, the need, the lead and the seed, or the need, the seed and the lead, right? And so I want to make sure that we are clear about that and having this conversation. And I know sometimes, again, let me reiterate to those of you who are just joining us on this hour, that there needs to be a healthy conversation of men about men in this culture, in our community, in the earth, that everybody can't be against men. As a man, certainly I am grateful for the woman, the wife, the mother, the father, the children that I have. I am grateful. And I'm preparing now for the grandchildren, because I want, more than just having people to run around looking like me and have my blood and my DNA, from a physical aspect. The inheritance that I want to bestow on the next generation or my grandchildren is a sense of theirs, that grandpa, papa was there. And I want that to be shared even from my sons and my daughters, that I was their father, right? And early on in my ministry, early on in my life, where I could have done a whole lot of things differently in terms of exposure and platform. I could have been on tour, traveling the world and all of that. When children came into my life, I knew that my world would change. I knew it then. And, sometimes my kids like, oh, you could have gone and, blah, 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 and done that. Absolutely. For me as a dad, that was a non-negotiable, because I know how it feels to want dad at certain things and him not be there. And it doesn't matter the case. It does not matter whether they are legitimate reasons or illegitimate reasons, that the presence and the there-ness of fathers is very, very, very important. And we would be remiss if we discounted that, right? We would be ignorant if we didn't think it mattered. But, especially when they got up in the age, started approaching the teenage years, I made a conscious decision. I told my wife, I've got to come off the road. I can't travel as much. As many invitations as I was having at that time in my 30s and my early 40s, that I was like, no, they need my presence there. And she's like, you know what, honey, you're exactly right. Because they, even though my wife does not play, they act differently when you're in the house. There's a sense of protection when you're there. There's a sense of, hey, we're going to be all right, when dad is in the house. And your presence there, your voice, you cooking, you teaching them how to tie a tie, you being in the audience when they're doing something, you can't make up for that when you're landing in different places preaching revival. My first ministry, my first obligation is to my family. And again, I know how it feels for dad to be there, and I know how it feels for dad not to be there. And that not to be there, I knew my dad was trying to make up for all of those things. Even when his body could not, he would always attempt to be present at anything that we had, me and my brothers, that he knew that I'm doing my best to make this up, and I never wanted to be that kind of dad. Although I appreciate my father for that makeup, I appreciate my presence in my children's life, because they taught me so much. I've learned so much from them. Even now, they teach me so much. They do. That's the blessing of having children, that we are able to learn, that they become They become our teachers. They become our perspective of the future. Now some of them like mine think they run me, they rule me, but that's every parent, because listen, I did the same thing to my parents and they did the same thing to theirs. So it's just a natural progression of life. And so one of the things in our community that I really, really want to change is to really have a accentuation of malehood and fatherhood, not from a sense of patriarchy and woman, you stay in your place. No. I think men are to be there to add a sense of protection. Yes. Can women protect themselves? Absolutely. Can women think for themselves? Absolutely. Can women take out the trash? Can women get up in the middle of the night and check to make sure all the doors are locked? And absolutely, they have that agency. But women that I know, now I can't speak for all women, but the women that I know, that if they had an opportunity to have a man consistent in their life to do those things that I just said, as husband and father, they'd be like, oh, listen, I'm going to bed. If honey got it, I'm good. When we get in the car to go someplace, my wife is never worried, because if I'm in the driver's seat, I'm going to, she knows I'm going to know where to go. She knows I'm going to drive over bridges, and she knows I'm petrified of bridges, but she knows I'm not going to put it on her. I'm not going to drive on. No, I'm going to take the brunt of it. I'm going to cover. I'm going to lead. I'm going to ask her, honey, what you think? I'm going to give her full agency in our marriage. She knows that I'm going to take care of my kids. I'm going to, shepherd them as best as I can, father them. I'm going to love and nurture them as much as I can, right? And that's my honor. That's my position. That's my duty, to discipline, to correct. Even in the days when I didn't want to, my wife was like, no, she would set it up and she would be like, no, you discipline them. Yep, exactly. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't know what they did. But since you said, whatever, I get it. But that's the joy. I've had much joy doing that. And retrospectively, I could have been probably a Grammy Award, Stellar Award winning artist. I could have been all over the country. I could have been a worldwide preacher and teacher and all that. But the trade, if we can even call it a trade, means nothing. When I look back, I don't regret it, because guess what? My children are stable. They are sound. They are doing the best they can in life. And even now, being in a position to help and for them to stand on my shoulders, because my shoulders are there. Yeah. My seed has my lead. Yes. That I am able to be the leader. That I've moved from that need and I have grown to be, and have had seed that acknowledge my lead, right? And that lead doesn't mean that I'm always right and that I'm always perfect. That's definitely not what that means. But what it means is that, guess what? I'm there. Say it again, Bishop, because they're not hearing me. They are not hearing me. That I am there. I do not want them to feel like my dad felt about his dad. I do not want them to feel like I felt when my dad had that moment where he was not there. Exactly. I don't want them. And they can write all the books they want, but that'll be something that they will never put it. Because if they put that in there, I'll call them a liar to their face. Because I want them to know the blessing of the responsibility, That's why that's part and parcel why I want grandchildren, because I want my sons and my daughter to know the value of their presence. And they won't ever feel that until they have families of their own, until they have children that when they walk into the house to run up to them and grab their legs and get excited for their kids to see their presence. They will never know that until that happens. I believe, it's my belief not casting any aspersions. And I'm you know what? I'm going to stop qualifying this because I want people to get mature enough to handle the conversations that we're having. But the reality is that every man should have the value of having a progeny, having a spouse and children that light up. You know, when I left this morning to come to the studio, I kissed my wife and she kissed me back, and I say, I'll see you. And her expectation to see me again, you know, that's a feeling as a man that you never lose. That when your children see you in the stands, and it makes them run faster, it makes them play better, it makes their chest pop out. I never want my sons or my daughter to ever be like that man I just saw on Instagram crying his heart out as a grown man trying to navigate parenthood. And I don't even think that he's tapped into the fullness of parenthood yet. He's not tapped into the fullness of his lead, L-E-A-D. He's not, because he's so busy trying to answer the questions of his missingness, and what he's doing now is not organic fatherhood passed down to him. He's trying to make up for. So a lot of the areas and decisions that he would have made or would make for his own children, he's not even free enough to make those. Why? Because in his mind, I'm trying to make sure they never miss what I did not have. So he said that I'm trying my best to make sure that they never feel that way. Right? And those things have to change in our community. Let me say that again. Those things got to change in our community. That fatherhood leadership, that male leadership. And when I say lead, again, I'm not talking about political positioning. I'm not talking about organizational positioning. I'm not talking about everybody bows down. We're not talking about leadership is not control. Let me say this again. Leadership is not control. And I think when we talk about leadership, male leadership, leadership that is men oriented, I think because of the poor examples that we have had in the past, we begin to think that is overarching reality, right? That is ubiquitous, but it is not. Right? I'm talking about my leadership in love, my leadership in care, my leadership in nurture. You know? That when I had to discipline my kids, I would have to separate myself for a minute, and my wife would come in, and I don't know if my children even knew this, but my wife would have to come into the room or come on the patio and say, babe, it's okay. You had to do it. And I'm like, babe, I feel terrible. She would be like, boy, you'll get over it. You know, she would be like, and that was easy for her to say, right? But she would say, you get over it. They needed it. They needed to see their dad exercise. I'm like, shut up. I don't want to hear that. I would be, oh my goodness. It would deplete me, even though in the times when they needed it, it was just, I never wanted them to mistake my lead as something that would ever be controlling and or harmful to them. Right? That my lead was always to protect them, always to impart wisdom. Whether they received it or not, that's the aspect that I always wanted and always want, right? That I cannot wait, and I tell my kids all the time, I can't wait till they have children because I'm going to be the granddaddy that spoils them. Listen, now I'm not letting them get away with anything that is misbehaving or disrespectful to their parents or for what we're trying to build as generational legacy. No, but listen. Listen, I'm going to be that one. Absolutely. Because I've got to create space for my children to stay and push in that lead. I'm going to be that one that my dad and my mom and my nana was to them. I'm going to be the one that you seek me out when you need coaching, wisdom, extra money, because your parents told you know what happened to the money I gave you, right? And I want to be the one that cashed out them $50, $100 and tell them, shut your mouth. Don't tell your parents where you got this. Don't, That's the kind of grandpop I want to be. That's where I am. Exactly. Right? Because I want my sons and my daughter to, fill in that space and me resign, right? Me resign from this place, but of always having to be what might be considered the heavy. But listen to me, men, if you're listening to me this morning, that lead is a place of honor. It's a place of respect. It's a place of revere. It's a place where they know, don't mess with my daddy. Don't mess with that. Listen, that when you walk in the room, things straighten up. When you clear your throat, there is such a care and demand and command on your leadership that they self-correct themselves. Oh, that's dad in the house. We better straighten up. One of the things that, growing up that I can remember, man, we used to do some things. 3 boys, we used to be wrestling and tossing and stuff in the living room would be, be falling down, and mama would come out there and she'd come out there with her belt or her bedroom slipper and say, I'm going to tear y'all up. And she would spank us or she would try to whip us. And then she would say this, wait till your daddy get home and I tell him what you did. Let me tell you. That was a straightened upper. I mean, we self-corrected. No, Mom, please don't say nothing to daddy. No. Because that's just kind of where we were. Right? And I think that is the role of men, that we bring a certain dignity, a certain order, and a certain ardor. A-R-D-O-R. Not just order, O-R-D-E-R, but adore. A certain fragrance, a certain environment, a certain atmosphere, that our very presence keeps things in order. Our leadership is so needed in this season, in this moment. So it's not just about you, sir, making babies. And I get it. And if we stop there, right? If we stop there, don't allow your sexual need and appetites, right, to govern the status of your true manhood, right? Because if you go down that path and you create a seed or create a child, right, then you switch from not just man, and sometimes you might be husband, sometimes you may not, but you switch to father, and father now requires that I am rooted in the presence of this individual's life forever. Absolutely. I don't get the convenience of dropping my seed off and then dodging it or saying it ain't mine or writing a check. No, that's not what that is. Your payment, sir, is your presence. Your leadership is your payment. Right? Your love is your payment. Your nurture, sir, is your payment. And let me talk to you again. Ladies, if you've got the man, he may not be perfect, and y'all may not be doing anything anymore, or that was just a moment of brief delight, or however you want to define it. But do not, if that man says, I want to have a part of my child's life, then suck up whatever feelings you may have about that man and allow him to be as present as he wants to be in that child's life. Yes, I said it. But what if he, no. You don't get to determine that. No, you don't get to determine what if he this. You don't get to determine to classify him and to grade him, because it took 2 to tango. So as much as you grade him, you're going to have to grade yourself. Yeah. I said what I said, and I did not diminish what I said, and I'll add more to it. Right? And say, I know it right now. What if he don't provide financially? What if he don't? Okay, let me come closer. Come closer. Come on. Okay. All right. Do not see that is society that renders and subjects the man to a paycheck. if he got to pay a paycheck to see his child, he didn't. Okay, come closer. I'm going to get in trouble here right now. Did he have a paycheck did he make a paycheck, or did he pay to make it? To make the baby? So why you got to pay now to see the baby? Oh, it got quiet now. Yeah. Because if he paid to make it, then what does that make you? So listen. Well, I hear you. Well, what if he don't pay? Wait a minute. Hold on. If he don't send a check, wait a minute. Hold it. He didn't pay a check to get some. Hello? Because if he paid a check to get a piece, then sis, what does that make you? No, don't back up now. Get closer. What does that make you? Yeah. What does that make you? Huh? What does it make you? If he didn't pay to get it. So that payment, that paycheck is something that you all sit down and agree. It's not a negotiating term. Well, if you pay me $250 a month, you can see your child. Wait a minute. No. That's not how that works. No, this is my child. I receive him and all that. This is my child. I made her and I want to be present in that child's life. And so here is how we're going to take care of this child together. Okay. I know I'm getting ready to make somebody mad in just a few minutes. But listen, if you ain't mad already, but again, before I take it back, I'll add more to it. We got to get this thing together. If he didn't pay you to have the baby, if he didn't pay you to get it between the sheets or wherever it happened, if he didn't pay to do it, then he should have to pay to see his child. No, he should say, the whole thing is you come together and we want to create. We're not together. I get it. But we want to create the best and most secure situation for my child. Yes, for our child. That's what we want to do. Right? And so, hey, I know you weren't making that much money when I was sleeping with you. So I can't expect you to do this by yourself because you couldn't do it by yourself when we didn't have the baby. Okay. So why can't we get together? And find out and say, hey, whatever it is to take care of this baby, let's provide the safest structure. Not just financial, but not just relational, but I need you here. You need to be as present. We together will be as present as we can be, as we should be together. Right? I'm not going to fight you because you with another man. And sir, that right? And I ain't going to fight you because you with another woman. We're going to be here for the baby we created. See, now that's maturity. See, y'all fussing over minutia. And when you start, what if he don't give a pay? Wait a minute. Hold on. Wait. He don't get to see his child if he don't give me that $500 a month. Did you hear what you just said? No. Did you hear what you just said, sis? Culture call. Y'all heard that? If I don't get my check every month, he can't see his child. Wait a minute. So all it takes is $500 a month to see the child that y'all made together? No, sis, you are using that child as a pawn. Yes. I said it. You have to understand that you got all of the pregnancy to make that. Well, what if he don't want to be a part of the pregnancy? Okay. Or then that's another subject. Because as a matter of fact, then we got to end all doubt. Because he doesn't want to be a part of the pregnancy because obviously there was a doubt there. And we got to deal with several layers. But when it's proven that that is his seed, then listen, sir, yes, finances, but not just money, but mentoring and nurturing and all those things come with it. Presence, leadership, protection comes with all of that. And your child should be able to depend on that. And mom should not stand in the way of that. Because if he ain't no good now that the baby is here, he wasn't no good then when you slept with him to make one. Ain't nobody want to say nothing in this church. Ain't nobody want to talk to me now. No, I'm telling you, if he ain't no good now, he wasn't any good then. You feel me? All right. So then there it is. And so we got to rectify that. Listen, there's so much we got to talk about. I got so much to go right here on the Culture Call with yours truly, L. Spencer Smith. Praise 93.3 FM and WTSK. Y'all keep it right here. We've got much more to come. Don't you dare miss it.
This is the world premiere.
And we are back. Yes, we are back right here on the Culture Call with yours truly, L. Spencer Smith. Praise 93.3. And we've been having an amazing conversation. An amazing conversation. And listen, I don't want y'all to miss what I'm saying. Yeah. I just hopped on over to my social media. And yeah, I know it. I knew I was going to listen. I knew when I figured, that, you know, when I started talking about this, that folks will have something to say, but I will double down on it. I will double down on it. Yes. I don't want you to miss what I'm saying. In these last few minutes, I do. I'm so tickled, y'all. I don't want you to miss what I'm saying because it might have pricked your feelings. But I want you to understand what I'm saying. That part of the problem that we're having is that we've allowed our experiences to define. And then you find someone that pushes back on your experience. Because I'm not obligated to see it your way. That I agree with you. Sis, I'm not. And I'm not saying it to protect men because if you listen to the entire broadcast, I'm not. What I am saying is, and I don't want us to get caught when we talk about the leadership of men, I'm not talking about it, number one, from an idea of political positioning or domination. What I'm saying is I need us to broaden the context in order to be able to find solutions with the problem. That's what I need. And one of the things that must need happen is you've got to be able to take some ownership that maybe my approach has not been the healthiest. That my approach may not have been the one that's probably the best way to address this matter. That's the thing. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that, you know, he not a dog, he ain't terrible. Because here's the deal. Here's the reality. Can we talk about it? The reality is this, is that I want you to also take responsibility. If we're going to talk about this, that what was he before or while you all were with each other? You know, because we sometimes get hold and stop right here. And that's one of the things that I ask when I'm at counseling. Sis, she's sitting across and she's upset and she wants her pastor to be on her side. But before I can even be on your side, I've got to ask you some questions. Tell me the quality of the individual that you laid down with. Huh? What was his life? Was he a leader? Was he XYZ? All of these things then. Because again, you allowed yourself to lay down with someone who had a questionable presence. And then you laid down with him and then you had a baby with him and you gave birth to someone now who's going to be questionable in that child's future. Right? And so you got to own that. You got to own that. That is the Russian roulette. That's the chance that you took. And sometimes society does not want to say hard things and hard questions that way. But, yeah, somebody got to say it. There's got to be some maturity somewhere. What I'm saying is if that man, see, here's the caveat. If that man wants to be there and his presence needs to be there, then by right, biologically, he has that to be a part of that child's life. Without any strings attached. Let me say that again. If he says, I want to be a part of my child's life, and he's a good man, he just doesn't want to be with you, then as a leader, he'll say, hey, and I'm just making up a name. Hey, Barbara, hey, it was great. while we were together, but we're not together anymore. And I don't see myself repeating that. I don't think I want to be with you, but I definitely want to be wherever my child needs me to be. Right? And I think that is important. And then, okay, and maturity says I have to accept what? That reality. I have to accept that reality and begin to understand the decisions that, you know, hey, that he doesn't want. Here it is. Y'all ready? He doesn't want to be with me. And now that's a situation. I get it, because now you got to acquiesce that I did not have a covenant before I laid down with him. Oh, Lord, nobody want to hear it. I did have a covenant. I didn't have any kind of promise and agreement, any kind of vow made. I didn't have a ring on my finger, nothing that obligated to him to be with me forever, but this new child. So I'm going to always be in his life. He's going to always be in my life, but it's going to be via this child. And that does not ratify or vow or signature marriage, right? That we have, the two have become one in that child. Right. And so that's the point. That's the point. Now, he doesn't want to be a part. He doesn't want to be a part. And this is what this is about today. Sir, I don't understand. If you're going to have a seed, you got to take the lead and be a part of that child's life. That's what we're talking about. From that need, unless you're carrying or creating another need, a silent, a provoking need. It is abuse for a father to withhold his presence, active presence in that child's life. That child had nothing to do with being here. Huh? And you've got to accept that responsibility. That's the reality. Period. Sir, you got to accept that responsibility. Right? And the lowest diminutive form of presence, male presence in that child's life is child support, finances, is money. Because that child is going to grow up and they're not going to say, well, my daddy paid $400 a month. No, but I ain't never seen him. He ain't never been at a basketball game. He ain't never been at a football game. He never was at a track meet. He wasn't at the debate. I didn't even see him, but he was there. No, exactly. That's not enough, sir. Right? And I know that might be your reality, but you got to do different by your seed. Right? That is it. And ma'am, don't marginalize the presence of that man by simply a check. Right? And don't make the check the penalty for his presence. That if you want to see your child, you got to pay this amount of money. Well, he didn't pay no amount of money to get you pregnant. Huh? Because if he did, that's another conversation. Right? His presence, if he says, well, I want to be here, and something happened between you two, and he says, but I still want to be here, then guess what you got to do? Put on your big girl underwear and let that man be there. Cooperate mutually, maturely, and say, hey, we're going to co-parent this child together. Right? And that means we're going to co-parent relationally. We're going to co-parent financially. We're going to co-parent spiritually. We're going to do everything we need to do together as it relates to this child, even though our lives may vector away from each other, which means he might marry somebody else and you might marry, the woman might marry another guy. Doesn't matter. That's the reality. Period. And I don't know if there is, I don't see what the argument is. There is no argument. Did you get me? There is no argument, right? That man could say, hey, yeah, I had this child. I don't know if we're going to be together because we might not be. We are compatible in the bedroom, but I don't know about any other rooms. Now, see? Now, folks talk about the Bible. Folks talk about the church being strict. Folks talk about scripture. Folks talk about culture and old hat and all this XYZ. They talk about this. But you see, what we look at sometimes in this culture as restriction is really protection. because God, better than anyone else, understands anthropological human behavior. Right? Exactly. That's why if you break up, the law doesn't even recognize you to get half. But if you married and got a covenant, now we got to talk about how we split finances. That's what I'm saying. Those are the conversations that we must have. And so, yeah, and I get it. They are hard conversations. They are conversations for the mature. I get it. They are conversations that we avoid. I get it. But the man has to, we've got to understand the man's need. We've got to understand his responsibility to his seed. And we've got to understand that responsibility means that he's got to lead. We cannot take that from him, his leadership. Let me show how that looks. That if that child gets in trouble in school, then before I go there, Leroy, making up a name, Leroy, hey, little Jessica got in trouble, and we need to have a parent-teacher meeting. Can we go together? Can we schedule something together? Because I need these teachers to see that she's got a father. I need her to see that she's got a culture, and we don't put this up. Okay, and if you're a man, tell me the date. I'll be there. I'll meet you at the school. Right. We don't know, sir. The mother doesn't just get to say when you can participate and when you cannot based upon X, Y, Z. No. You got to lead. Hey, little Jamal acting a nut in school. Guess what I'm going to do? Hey, Jessica, you ain't got to take off work. I'm going to show up. I'm going to show up on the football field and talk to the coach. Mama don't need to be talking to the coach. Yeah, daddy, talk to the coach. Hey, with your son in tow. Hey, I heard you having some issues from Jamal. I want to reassure you that that's not going to happen again, because that's not how his mom and I have taught him to behave and respond to authority, and so, yeah. So I understand you not letting him play. And as his dad, if you got any problems, you call me. You ain't got to trouble his mom with that. Here's my number. Call his dad. And boy, listen, we want you to play. We see the talent and the gifting in you, but what we will not tolerate is any kind of disrespect. What did I say? You got to be mature. If you want to play, you told me you wanted to play. I've invested in this. See, that's how the dad takes the lead. That's how the man takes the lead, right? Regardless if he with mama or not. That's how the man takes the lead. Your presence. Absolutely. And yeah, that coach, hey, I got you, bro. You call me. I'll call you if we have any more trouble. And I promise you, you will not have any more trouble. Hey, I called his coach. We got an understanding. We won't have that problem anymore. I told him that's not how we're raising him. I told him that we don't raise him to be disrespectful to authority. And if he got any trouble, I told him not to call you. I told him to call his daddy. That's cool with you? Yeah, cool. That's cool with me. But how come you told him not to call his mom? Calm down on Esther. He's taking the lead. He's not running you. He's trying to tell you we just co-parented our child. Your child does something, I'm going to call your daddy and say, hey, he don't need to play no more. These grades are falling. Okay, no problem. Put him on the phone. The lead. That's what you got to do, bro. Listen. It's all a part of creating a healthy family in our community when men understand their lead in the community, in our families and everywhere else. Absolutely. Listen, this is the Culture Call. I see the runway. We're getting ready to land this plane on this amazing radio conversation. But we'll be back tomorrow. Guess what? From 10 to 12. But I got a few more things I need to say to you. I need you to stay right here. Praise 93.3 WTSK. Don't you dare miss it.
This is the world premiere.
Well, what a marvelous day we have had right here on the Culture Call. And I know this was a controversial conversation. My social media is blowing up. Y'all need to follow me, L. Spencer Smith, or the Culture Call, to see what we're talking about. We're going to go into overtime with this conversation. That's right. Men, the need, the lead, and the seed. Listen, as As my grandmama and my mama would say at the end of every phone call, I love you a bushel, I love you a peck, and I love you a hug around the neck. This has been the Culture Call with yours truly, Bishop L. Spencer Smith, inviting you to love each other intentionally. Make sure that you create a good day, because I know that God has purpose for you. Listen, there's a river on the inside of you. You got to let it flow. River of joy, peace, and love, happiness. Do good to all and have a great and amazing day. Catch you in the morning. Peace.